Donald Trump described entrepreneurship as being a fine artist. Now, you start out with a canvas, a blank canvas, and then you paint your vision. But unlike a fine artist, an entrepreneur he spends his waking hours, actually, selling his vision, his paintings to the world. To the extent that he can sell this vision or his visions is to the extent that he can achieve great success. My next two guests have achieved spectacular success, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to have them here on Groundbreakers. My first guest is a pioneer in the jewelry industry. He was, in its prime, the largest manufacturer of jewelry in Canada. He's definitely a trailblazer, somebody worth talking to. He's actually not just, he's actually a lecturer, a rabbi, a philanthropist. Yeah, I think he even does makeup, but catering. He does it all, and we're going to talk about that. My second guest, well, it's often that we use the term visionary in the world of business, and they say, sometimes we're puffing smoke. We're talking through our tuchas. In this case, we can use it with great confidence because Harry Stinson is one of the most innovative minds in real estate and land development, a true trailblazer. Welcome to the show, Harry Stinson, Jack Berkowitz. Good to see you guys.
Thank you. Be here. Thank you.
Good to see you guys. So, let's get right into this. I mean, we're in Canada. Every country has certain constructs, certain limitations. And a lot of people say being an entrepreneur in Canada is a very tough line to toe for many obvious reasons. How have you found it to be an entrepreneur in Canada? In other words, Jack, what are the limitations of being an entrepreneur in Canada?
Well, firstly, I think that limitations are for losers. Limitations are for people who won't make it, can't make it, and need an excuse, something to rely on to explain their failures away. We have one real limitation in Canada, and that's the lack of banks. So financing is a big issue. But for people who achieve greatness, for people who achieve success, there is no limitation. You get around it. So, I mean, we happen to be in the greatest country in the world, and yeah, they do put restrictions on us every single day. But these are just things that we need to get around to get to where we need to get.
That sounds, with the greatest respect, that is, sounds completely egomaniacal and not realistic.
Well, with all due respect, Eden, that means that you're talking from the perspective of a loser.
No, wait a second. You're not addressing the actual limitations. You're saying limitations can be overcome.
And I
said, what are they?
They're minor limitations.
Are you telling me there are no limitations?
Well, they're not real limitations. They're molehills. There are no mountains to climb in this country.
Harry, jump into this. From a social, economic, political, come on, let's talk about this. I mean, I admire the confidence and audacity, and I expect nothing less from Berkowitz, but you tell me from your experience.
I agree with a lot of the comments. The one thing I would say is different about Canada, and the comment about banks is absolutely true. The financial options in this country are extremely limited. It's a little club. One thing that is quite problematic in Canada is this concept of recovery. In the States, it's expected that an entrepreneur tries, you fall behind, you try again, and they expect you to try again. That's acceptable. In Canada, it's more, okay, he tried, it failed, so there you go. That's it. Too bad.
Well, I don't know if that's a perspective that you have from the consumer, from the average member of the public.
Or from the banks and lenders.
Well, that is the major limitation of this country.
But wait a second. A minute ago, you said there was no limitations.
I said,
now,
if there is one, it's banks, and that is there is only one bank in this country. There are 5 banks with a minor little player on the side. Schedule B banks are not allowed to lend of any significant amounts of money. If you want to borrow $10 million in this country, you've got to go outside the country, and they won't lend in Canada. The banks are one here, and the reason we talk about this incredible strength of banks is because their lending criteria is so restrictive that of course they're going to be strong, especially when you don't allow them competition. That is the only significant problem we have for entrepreneurs in this country. Beyond that, there's nothing significant. Taxes, pay your taxes. Or don't pay your taxes and run a criminal organization. We're very lenient on crime, so the police are not a problem, the crimes are not a problem, the law is not a problem.
Yeah, crime is something we're going to get into. But Harry, how do you address this?
No, I think he's fundamentally right, but I do think there is a real Canadian hang-up with failing publicly. You just don't want to do that. So the Canadian society in general is safe. It's stable. It is a great country to live in. But if you want to shoot for the stars, there are limitations. And most Canadians who become stars are well-known, Canadian-born, but they're living in Hollywood. They're living in New York.
From my experience, it seems like if you come up with a really novel, fresh, trailblazing idea, it's almost resented here in Canada. Then you go to the States, you become famous, like you said, in the entertainment field specifically, and you're paraded back and they give you a star, but they weren't.
But you don't show up for it.
You don't show up for it. You have your grandmother.
Scheduling conflict.
Well, there's no question that the angels, the lenders, the bridge loans are not available in Canada to the extent
now you're
that
backtracking. See, now you're backtracking.
No, but I'm saying it's a molehill. That's what I'm saying. It's a molehill. You get around it. If you've got an idea to pitch, I was in my store this morning, and a young man came in for coffee, and he pitched me an idea on an internet website, and he's not taking no for an answer. His idea sucks. Google preempted him by 10 years, but he refuses to accept that. And I said to him, you're going to achieve success. You have a lousy product, but you will achieve because you don't take no for an answer. That's what's lacking.
So essentially what you're saying is if the will and the ingenuity is strong enough, then even our inherent limitations in Canada are easily overcome. Well, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. When you call somebody a visionary, you have to understand what you're saying is, and let me tell you what you're saying. What you're saying is that they see what
I don't really need you to tell me what I'm saying. I go to my psychiatrist for that.
Well, but I'm cheaper.
How much are you cheaper?
I don't charge any money. Here, take the couch.
The one thing about Jack,
you got to raise your rates here.
Yeah, the one thing about Jack is, you know what? He'll give you 20% off and no taxes.
Well, I'll actually pay you to buy my product.
But he gets to set the retail price, so there you go.
Well, what I mean to say is it's not enough to have the vision to see what you want to do. You've got to make it happen. That's really the difference between the men and the boys. You've got to make it happen. And in this country, that is hard, not because we have obstacles. The obstacles we have are that nobody wants to embrace visionaries or new ideas. You've got to go down to the States to make it happen. I went public on the NASDAQ. You know why I went public on the NASDAQ? Because the TSX would absolutely not even look at me. Is that you consider them mountains, I consider them all molehills. Of course there are issues.
I don't.
There are obstacles every day. There's a problem getting out of bed, but you can overcome that. Then there's a problem getting through the day.
I didn't say you couldn't overcome it. I just said that there's obstacles in this country that are inherently different than other parts of the world.
Yes, there are obstacles, but I agree with Jack. The entrepreneur will find a way. Like water going down a hill.
That's why you guys are here. You found a way.
When I decided to go public with my jewelry manufacturing, which at the time was the largest jewelry manufacturer on the planet.
It was.
I'm correcting you because I'm narcissistic. You said Canada. No, it's on the planet. I had thousands of employees, and I found a way to compete with China, with India, with Singapore, with the Middle East. I could compete with anybody and everybody, both in terms of capacity and in terms of quality and in terms of price, because I wouldn't take no for an answer. I reversed the entire manufacturing process. But I had to go to the US to get funding for that. Canada wouldn't do it. My own bank said, what are you, crazy? You're wasting your time. And then, funnily enough, as soon as the Americans came forward with money, my banks here said, well, why don't you take it from us? We'll be there.
Sure.
I mean, we'll give you money. And I said, go away.
It's the Canadian way.
That's Scotiabank. You know, get the money elsewhere, and then they'll lend you money. It's like an umbrella that only shines when the sun is shining.
Jack, I'm about to ask you the most penetrating journalistic question that you've ever heard in your life.
Why do I doubt that?
Okay. Because you have every reason to. There's no pulling the wool over your eyes. Okay, let's say God, and we all believe there's a God. You know, we right? Absolutely. He's watching you all the time, Jack.
Absolutely.
You know he's watching you.
He is.
He is, 24/7.
24/7.
And he likes you, by the way. I hear he likes you very much.
I hope so.
And let's say, work with me here. Let's say he comes to you, and he says, Berkowitz, I'm watching you. I think you're a great entrepreneur. You got this, you know, these great visions. I want you to genetically engineer the perfect entrepreneur. What are the 5 main characteristics that you're putting into that test tube? The 5, so we're talking the ideal portrait of the ideal entrepreneur.
Well, interesting, because God does not like people who have chutzpah. Nevertheless, we are amkshe oref, which is a stiff-necked people. We're stubborn. We don't take no for an answer. And I think that's the prime prerequisite is not taking no for an answer. The ability to say yes no matter what. It's this chutzpah, it's this cholam yekes, call it what you will, but it's the ability to say, I will still pursue my dream and I will get it done. Never take no for an answer. That's number 1. Of course, you've got to have the talent or the vision. You've got to be able to come up with the item that you need to make. You've got to be able to sell it. You know, even a great doctor will never achieve greatness if he can't sell himself. Salesmanship.
Just number 3. Just for those keeping track of this genetically engineered perfect entrepreneur. Now we need 2 more, Jack.
You need to have faith in the product. So it's not enough to sell something that you don't believe in. You got to have faith in yourself, faith in what you're selling, faith in the concept, be it a building, a community, a structure, or be it a piece of jewelry for a great price and a great design, and the fact that this will sell, notwithstanding all the naysayers.
Fair enough. Number 5, Jack?
I don't think you need 5, but if I had to come up with a number 5, I think it's a belief in God.
A belief in God. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, because I heard that God has no place in the upper echelons of business.
You know what? I deal with that conundrum every single day.
Let's pause on that because I do think that'll take us off track. I wanted to get Harry's take on this. Harry, you're genetically engineering the perfect entrepreneur.
How come he gets to think about it?
Well,
no, I can just say he's summed it all up. But there's one other thing you do need, and that actually is your health. And there's a lot of major entrepreneurs that have passed away too early. They just got so consumed with it. I've gone through a lot of stress and setbacks in the last few years, and I couldn't have endured it if I didn't keep myself in good shape. Like literally, I run 70 flights a day of stairs. It's a regular routine.
Yeah, and
I couldn't have endured it if I just let my system sluggishly slow down.
And you know what? That's an absolutely brilliant segue for my next topic and theme, because you know, both you guys have been involved in soap opera sagas in your own respective careers. Now, Jack, you actually, you know, get a cold, hard death threat as you're walking, you know, meandering through life, trying to mind your own business, and somebody comes up to you and says, I want to kill you, and I was hired to kill you. Harry, you've had some really, really stressful moments over the years as well that, and I'm not sure if it ranks right up there with a moment like that, but I'm going to ask you guys, how do you, because this really does deserve a few moments of time, how do you weather the ongoing stress? And how did you get through that incident? I don't know if you want to clarify, without any mentioning names, that incident, because I think we should.
It's before the courts right now, so I can't really speak about it in great detail, and there's many lawsuits.
Just give the synopsis.
Well, I've been a jewelry retailer or manufacturer for the good part of my life. That's after being a rabbi and a CPA and a talk show host and many other things. But the bane of my existence, the reason I exist right now, is because I'm a jewelry retailer. Some other retailer who spends all his time buying gold, as opposed to my business, which is selling gold, took exception to the fact that I chose to buy gold as well. And his way of dealing with the competition, as per my allegations, are that he felt I should be somehow set aside as a competitor. And so I walked into one of my stores one day. There was a man allegedly waiting for me, or he had an appointment with me, he claimed, and I didn't know who he was. And he then proceeded to tell me that I'm shortening the whole saga because he basically said that he was hired to kill me. And
okay, so what are you thinking at a moment like that?
Well,
what's going through your mind?
The first thing that's going through your mind, while your knees are buckling and while you're panting for breath, you're really saying, this can't be true, it's a joke. It's got to be a joke, because all I do is buy jewelry and sell jewelry. Why would anybody want to kill me for that? So I took it to be not real, and I went to the police, told them the story. They took it from there, and they found that there was enough veracity in the story that they laid charges.
Important to note, because we are broadcasting here, that these are still allegations and nothing has been proven in the court of law.
Well, worse than that, they actually dropped the charges for reasons that they would not tell me, but I suspect that there's significant reasons. Okay,
repercussions of that for you. You told me the other day you're wearing a heart monitor now. I mean, what are the repercussions?
The repercussions that your life changes forever. You start.
How so? How so?
For one, the good side of it all is that you start to value your family and friends. Right. You start to value the fresh air and the sunshine, because you keep looking back to that moment and say it could have been the end. So all of a sudden, every day takes on new significance, and your loved ones become very, very important to you. Having said that, you don't step out of a building at night without looking over your shoulder all the time. So. Your life.
So it's on your mind 24/7 still?
It never goes away.
Do you think it's going to go away?
It will never go away.
It will never go away. No. So it's a moment that changed your life, and your life will never be the same.
My life will never be the same.
And that is the price.
Forget the literally close to $1 million in legal fees, which keep on going, and we haven't yet reached the first day of discoveries. I mean, it's now 4 years, and we can't seem to get anywhere.
Sorry, I'm going to get to Harry in a second, but I have a really interesting question, because you are a man of God. You are. You're a rabbi.
I am.
A lot of people don't know that. How do you reach a point of true forgiveness for a moment like that, which is a pretty ugly, nasty moment?
Forgiveness of the perpetrator?
Forgiveness.
Forgive God?
Well, look at forgive the perpetrator, and if we are spiritual individuals on a higher level, how do we forgive God?
Well, we can't ask questions of God. My parents are Holocaust survivors, and they didn't ask questions of God, so I'm certainly not going to ask questions of God.
Will you forgive this individual?
Never.
Never?
Never.
Do you have any interaction with him at all? Do you ever bump into him in the community?
My week is ruined every time I sight a glimpse of him.
Oh,
So yeah,
sorry about that.
I will never forgive him.
Sorry about that. Harry, let's get to you. You weathered a very, very public storm with David Mervish. We don't have a huge amount of time, but this was an epic battle. Millions of dollars in legal fees. The emotional devastation was unbelievable because you and I have talked about this over the years. You've had your own trials and tribulations and your own storms, and the fact that you're still standing here is quite a testament to your constitution. But I want to give you a crack at that question: is how do you keep standing?
Well, I think the health aspect is one, but and I haven't had as devastating a threat as a death threat. But when you realize that the concept of the justice system, that justice will prevail, and if all else fails, you can go for,
Not true.
It's not true. It is a legal industry, and the moment you can't feed that legal industry, you're on your own. Very much on your own, and it is not dissimilar. This is sound exaggeration, but it's not dissimilar to going into the police station in Russia and saying Vladimir Putin threatened me. It's like
But we're in Canada. It's not supposed to be that way.
It's just more formal.
Yeah.
It is. When you had interaction with authorities, the police, and so on, you do find out that justice is not for everybody.
Right. So, we don't have a lot of time to go into this soap opera, which could easily be a movie of the week or an Academy Award-winning documentary.
The most disappointing part about this was when Philip Seymour Hoffman died. I had already cast him as one of the people in the movie, so that was devastating to hear. But it will be an interesting story, and I will tell it someday.
Right, and it is David and Goliath. In this case, David being the Goliath. And I just
there's a spin on that. When the story is told, the villain will not be who you expect. There is a Rasputin.
There's a great twist here. I just want to pay a few minutes attention to this because I just think I'd be remiss. Do you want to have can you synopsize this in about 2.5 minutes because of what really happened here? Because the Toronto Star and all the major networks, they're all on the. David Mervish, they're in the pocket of David Mervish.
Well, the Mervish family has done an enormous amount for the city.
Right.
And I credit them for that, and they continue to.
Right.
But that unfortunately puts a spin on it. And the media, who are struggling for advertising dollars as it stands, are going to be influenced by two parties, one of whom is the largest private advertiser in the city.
Right.
But basically what happened is we were partners in a development project.
Yeah, so wait, so I just want to be clear about this. So, guys, let's be clear here. So, Harry Stinson, real estate visionary, teams up with, and he is a mogul, we can safely say that, right? Toronto mogul David Mervish.
Yes.
And it's the odd couple. You couldn't have scripted this any better. You got two unlikely characters working together, and cuts, I don't know how many years later, this man is on the verge of being escorted out of the building that he developed, putting in thousands of hours into developing this huge skyscraper. So I'm wondering if you could take us through as quick as possible where this marriage, this business relationship broke down.
Well, it is a short time allowance, and as I mentioned, I warned you before, don't get me started on this.
No.
But essentially where it broke down is, I think, when the lawyers saw the classic opportunity for a dispute on which they could pour gasoline, and one of the parties was very, very deep pockets. So this could be lucrative. And I don't think that had it been left to David and myself sitting in a coffee shop, this couldn't have been worked out. But it got way out of hand. And it wasn't out of hand over a personal dispute. It was out of hand actually over a deficiency lawsuit with regard to the building.
So you build this, so you develop this amazing condominium hotel, and there's a deficiency lawsuit with the condo owner saying certain things were not delivered, correct?
That's correct.
Now,
$30 million
it
worth.
becomes a question of where does the blame go? Who's the fall guy? There's always got to be a fall guy.
Well, I was sort of thrown out with the bathwater on that. But, you know, as Jacques has said, it's before the courts. Mine never got before the courts. There
Why
was
not?
a massive, well, because I ran out of money before I could get it before the courts.
Right.
And that was known by all parties, including the lawyers.
Right.
So when you have an army on one side
Right.
and you're sort of standing alone on the other side, it doesn't take very long to figure out. And the judges know this. They would rather not have to rule on something. So if they know what the outcome is going to be, all you have to do is just stall it out long enough until one of the parties just slides
Peters
out of
out.
court, you know, and that's an easy way to deal with
Yeah,
it.
justice is for the rich. No question.
Now, the story, though, will be much more interesting when it's told, and it's something that people will relate to because I think all of us at some point, whether small or large, have gone through that nasty dispute that just got out of hand, and afterward you think, how did we get
What
there?
was it all about? That's what you
It's
think.
like Kramer versus Kramer. You know, at the end of the movie where they're both saying, how did we get into court? She's not that bad. He's not that bad. You know, it's just let's just get out of here. And the lawyer's just saying, no, we're on a roll here. Let's go with this sucker.
Right.
And they're both broke at the end.
Right.
Repercussions.
Well,
You're-
the biggest
you're
problem
you're
is
recovering.
I'm recovering, but it's really hard in the internet age to erase that. Okay, because people will all find out about them. You go online and bango, you find everything. It's on the internet. It must be true. Some of it's true. A lot of it's just made up. Most of the people.
What do you want the audience to know? The greatest misconception of that about the truth, and then we'll wrap up this topic.
One King actually turned out to be an enormous success.
It was.
And it's like the producers, you know, when the show succeeded, oh, that screws up the whole plan here. It was
no one
supposed to
wants
succeed.
anyone to succeed.
It turned out to be an enormously successful hotel, and has to this day it is running 80 to 90% occupancies, $1 million a month in food and beverage. The same staff that I put into place are there. It's been enormously successful as a hotel. At the very beginning, it wasn't thought that would work. It was supposed to be a condo. People would buy suites. Maybe they could rent them out. The rental program, the tail began to wag the dog. And as a hotel, it's been hugely successful. As a building, it's won architectural awards around the world.
And you were responsible for the foundation of that hotel.
And they can't take it away. And that is what I love
Yet
about
you
real estate.
Yet you receive no benefit, no financial
Financially,
benefit from it.
less than no benefit.
$17
Way back
million
here,
in
$17
debt.
million bucks behind.
Oh
but
my
I am still
goodness.
alive, and it's motivating.
And you're climbing 70 flights.
I'm climbing 70 flights a day.
All's well that ends well.
Well,
Absolutely.
Almost.
hasn't ended yet, so there we go.
Yeah,
More
no, your
flights to climb.
constitution is absolutely incredible. And same with you, Jack. Let's talk about the actual idea, because every entrepreneur needs a novel idea. You don't need one, as Jack said, if you're a great enough promoter. And you
No,
don't
you
take-
have to have the idea.
You have to
You
have the
have
idea.
to have the idea.
Jack never
There's
said
pe-
that. Jack said you have to have the product and have faith in the product.
You just said a minute ago someone came to you with a website and he doesn't have the greatest idea, but he
Yeah,
won't
he-
take no for an answer. And you
he-
said he
But
will
he believed
succeed.
in it. The
He
guy
be- he
believed
believes
in it.
right? I don't believe in it.
But is it a novel idea?
We
Well,
don't know. I
It's
don't hear.
Google minus 10 years, but maybe he'll tweak it, maybe he'll do something with it. He really believes in what he's done, and that's the prerequisite. So whether he'll sell it or not, who knows for sure. I think he will get somewhere with it, not because it has real merit, but because he believes in it.
Okay. All right.
I understand that.
No, but I said that it's about the novel idea. You said, yes, it is about the novel idea. And I said a lot of entrepreneurs succeed without a novel idea.
I don't think-
there seemed to be a disagreement there.
maybe
He believes that it's novel. I don't, as an investor. I would never invest
But
in
he
it.
has an
he'll-
So
idea.
that's
he has
completely
an idea.
subjective.
He has an idea.
He has an idea.
He has a vision. He has something that he wants to, and it isn't this. One of the things what did frustrate me in my relationship with David was he kept saying, "Well, you're just a salesman,"
Yeah.
which is ironic considering the son of Honest Ed is saying, "Oh, you're just a salesman." Well, that's what got him there in the first place. But it isn't the same. A true entrepreneur does have this idea, good or not. He has this vision that he's passionately promoting. If you take an entrepreneur and say, "Here's something that you really don't believe in, go and sell it," they can't sell
Two
it.
different things. A good idea and someone who believes in it. They're two separate topics.
It also helps. You alluded to Donald Trump at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's all very nice for Donald Trump, whose father was enormously wealthy to say he had this vision and he's crafting it. Well,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
admire Donald's survival, and he's a, you know, I quite like Donald as a
He
person.
hasn't really
but
survived. He just continues to keep his head above water while he goes bankrupt time and again. You know, he is the biggest enigma to me, as somebody who really has nothing to offer, continues to offer it. You know, so there's an.
How about hair products for men?
Right.
Wait a second. Doesn't that substantiate my last point?
No,
You said he has nothing to offer, yet he keeps offering
we're not
it.
saying that he won't
Entertainment.
succeed. Exactly. We're not saying he won't succeed. We're saying he's got nothing to offer. He continues to succeed because he's a great salesman. At the end of the day, that will shine
That
through.
was my point 5 minutes ago. You could be selling the manure outside, but if you believe that it's strong enough,
Only so far, though. It's got its limitations.
manure has its limitations.
That's right.
That's what you're saying.
Well, Donald believes in the
Take it from
entertainment
Jack
of what he's doing,
Berkowitz,
though.
manure has its limitations.
You can stick with that business. I'm cool.
We
No manure.
So how does an entrepreneur protect a good idea?
It's very hard to protect intellectual property unless you're ruthless about it with lawyers. But the property itself needs to be an interesting
Well, actually, I
idea.
did. Well, I did the opposite. The reason I was able to have Canada compete successfully with the rest of the world in jewelry manufacturing is we are limited in Canada with skilled labor. We don't have setters, diamond setters and gem setters and so on. It takes a lot of time to set a stone, to set it properly. Berkowitz says, well, why don't we reverse the process? And I totally reversed the process so that now any unskilled laborer within a day could set 10,000 stones a day, which is 100 times greater than anybody in China could set. So what did I do? Absolutely nothing. Rather than go and patent this idea, which was at that time the most revolutionary idea in jewelry manufacturing 25 years ago, I decided to keep the process a secret and do it on the 5th floor of an industrial building or commercial building. Well, my employees would fan out across the world and go work elsewhere and took the idea with them. So within 5 years, I was competing with the rest of the world on my idea. So my choice of protecting the process
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So
was
how
a
do you-
bad idea. I could have done what Harry's saying, and that is protected intellectually through lawyers. I chose not to go that route.
Why?
Because I thought it would be safer. Once you apply for a patent, you've got to disclose the patent,
Right.
the process,
Right.
And I said, I'm not disclosing the process. I'll keep it a secret. So I am now responsible for about 98% of the world's jewelry manufacturing with my process.
Right.
But
So
I
I
have no
guess that
protection.
answers my question. There is no protecting
There really isn't.
a
You
really
can't-
good idea.
You can't legally or practically protect
can't
it. If you
enforce
think
it.
you've got this idea and I'm good for the rest of my life, forget it. I mean, pharmaceutical companies can't protect their patents.
For 17 years
You just
they
have
can.
to keep moving.
So the idea is then.
In theory.
So then the idea is
someone's
as soon
gonna
as
copy it in Korea.
the idea then as soon as you get this amazing brainstorm, get out there, get it done as quick as
Look
you
for
can.
the next one.
But-
Microsoft had that problem. They did not think ahead. They thought they could coast on their. They're now catching up. McDonald's, any corporation that starts to coast thinks we're good, we're fine. Just keep doing it again.
How did you come up with this hybrid of a jewelry store and a restaurant combined in one? Now you described it as breakfast at Tiffany's, and it really is
good.
yeah, it really is a clever idea. When did you come up with that?
Better than finding flying
I think
houses.
we have
I've got
do we
a
have
diamond in my suit.
Richard, do we have a picture of?
Bali Tshuva, people who have come back to the religion, are embarrassed to take their parents who are not religious to any restaurant because the kosher restaurants historically have not been as hygienically and food-wise as they would like and to impress their parents. They all come to me and say, thank you for allowing me to bring my non-religious parents to your restaurant because we are proud of this restaurant, and they agree. So that's one of my greatest achievements, is that I've brought kosher food to a high level. But on this issue of combining,
But when did you come up with the idea?
12 years ago.
And where were you? Don't tell me you're on the toilet because that's bad imagery.
No, I was actually servicing a customer at my flagship store at Keelan Highway 7,
Yeah.
and that customer said, I love it. It's $12,000. I got to think about it. It's a diamond ring. We're going to go out to Tim Hortons. We're going to have a coffee, and then we'll think about it, then we'll be back. That was the 100th time that month that they said that, and they never came back. So I asked myself, is this an exit strategy? They're going out to think about the diamond because they want to get out of my store? Or they're really going to think about it, but when they do think about it, what causes them to say, we're not going back? So I said, why don't I just bring Tim Hortons into my store, which is Omni.
So can we have our coffees now?
So I created my own coffee shop. Now I give them the ring, they go to the window, they sit there, they have their coffee, they're watching the ring, it looks pretty good. 9 out of 10 customers come and complete the transaction.
Right.
I was thinking.
Right, very
good.
Yeah, very clever, very clever. And you're not, your career is replete with clever concepts and clever ideas. Now he's he's cringing his face like he wants to argue with some kind of
No, I'm not going to argue, because Jack said I had the same scenario. I was a real estate, I still am a real estate broker. In fact, I qualify for the seniors discount at the real estate board apparently. But I was a real estate broker selling condos in downtown Toronto in the 80s, and customers were saying, is this it? They're boring. Like, I want to buy it. I don't want to mow the lawn. I'd like to buy a condo, but this thing is really boring. Find me something different, a loft like in Ghosts or Flashdance, one of those cool urban spaces. There weren't any. I would go to the developers and say, you should build them, and they say, yeah, sure, kid. If we build it, you will come. They will come. We'll spend tens of millions of bucks. Your idea fails. What are you going to do? You're going to pay me back? So I decided to get into the development business because I heard customers over and over again saying, find me something interesting and I will pay for it. I will buy it.
And that was the inspiration for the Candy Factory?
For the Candy Factory, because people were saying, I want something a little edgy, I want something urban downtown, but the industry, the real estate industry, is very conservative because there's an enormous amount of capital investment in it. You don't just test it. You can design software in your basement and maybe it catches, maybe it doesn't, but if you're developing a project, you're into millions of dollars before you even know if it's going to fly, and years of work. So it's a huge gamble to try something different. And the development industry is also very familial. People tend to be there because their father and their grandfather was there. So you got a formula, you just keep doing it.
Did you know at the time that it would become, and I think Toronto Life said this in print, one of the top 10 most profound happenings in the city of Toronto? Did you have an inkling that it could become something that, and that was a dominoes effect across Canada? You know that, it wasn't just Toronto.
No, but I didn't have that thought, oh gee, if I do this, I'll become famous because of that. No, but there was this passionate sense that there's a huge gap here in the market.
There's a need for it.
There's a need for it. I'm a person selling a product that I love and believe in.
Right.
But there's nothing on the shelf that my customer wants to buy.
Right.
And they're in my car saying, thanks for driving me around, we'll get back to you. Well, you don't want to hear that, we'll get back to you line.
They never come back.
They don't come back.
No.
So I got to put them on the shelf somewhere. Okay, when you're talking about real estate sales, and the customer's saying, I'll spend $400,000 or $500,000, and your commission's 3 to 6%, and you haven't got something there, you got to find one. And I could not get the industry to buy into it, so I figured naively that I'll just go out and do that. And it's masochistic, and the classic, pioneers, you can tell them by the arrows in their back, and it's true. Because nobody wanted to copy it until afterwards. It was a bitch getting financing. Extremely difficult.
And that goes with every industry.
I'll tell you one little story though. When I was trying to get financing for the Candy Factory, I went to a major bank, one of the club, as you mentioned there.
Candy Factory story here for those who have an interest in real estate.
Okay, it's not candies. It was called the Candy Factory, but it was a big old abandoned warehouse on Queen Street West, which is now the very cool section. Okay, at that time, abandoned, next door abandoned, across the street abandoned, derelict street.
Yep, complete. I mean, this was the
And now real chic. I mean, it's really gorgeous. It's alive.
Absolutely. So I'm trying.
Not even a cactus could grow there before you arrived.
I didn't check the cactuses, but we did have this project which the public loved, and they bought the suite. So I'm out trying to finance it. I go into the banks and I get laughed at. And I go, I won this bank, and I make my presentation, and they just sitting there like a bunch of old people in the Catskills, and your comedian there, come on, work with me here. They were just total silence. So I walk out as usual. A few weeks later, the guy comes into the sales office, the Candy Factory, baseball cap, young lady with him, says, remember me? And I said, no, I honestly can't picture it. And he says, I was at the bank. Remember, you came into the bank, made your presentation? I said, well, so what are you here for? You guys didn't even
flinch.
No, it was like complete thumbs down. Why are you here? He said, look, I'm a banker. Am I going to sit around the table with the credit committee and say, let's take a flyer on this kid with his idea? No, it doesn't look good on me. But I rather liked it. My daughter here wants to buy a condo. Sold him a condo. Individually, people get it. Institutionally, don't want to step out of line on this one.
Exact same thing in the television landscape. I think that goes right across the board, as you said, in Canada. It's not just...
If the audience, if the customer will buy it,
You know, one of the things that Canadian banks, getting back to that issue, Canadian banks will never allow you to meet their credit committee.
There isn't a credit committee.
There actually is downtown. They're anonymous. No one ever gets to meet them.
You never met
No,
them?
never met one.
No,
No.
you're not allowed to. The banks have a rule. You cannot meet the credit committee because you know why? Do you know why? You might actually have an idea that you can sell to them. They don't want to be sold. They want to go by numbers. You know, so you cannot ever take the passion, the incredible endurance, the incredible belief that you have for a project or for a purpose, and sell it to them. So they take no risks ever. That's
You
the
know,
problem.
and the stupid part about that is you cannot fake passion. You can see through that. You can fake numbers so easily. You can create this fancy report. You can get an accounting firm to say anything.
Most decisions of great magnitude should be based on the person who's pitching it to you. You got to look the guy in the face. I like what he's got to say, and I like who's saying it.
Put him in
That's
the hot
part
seat.
of the variable. It's a major variable. Banks don't want to know about that. In Canada, you'll never ever get to meet a credit committee.
I heard they're dining at Omni once in a while there.
Yeah.
You know, they're grabbing the pancakes, and that's how you might grab.
I really don't think there is one. I think it's a sham that they just say that there's
they
this credit
exist?
committee. Doesn't really
Is
exist.
or is this just a, you know?
It's a myth.
The
It's like the Wizard of Oz. Behind that curtain, there's this
there's a-
phony little guy who's like, oh, ignore! My job is to say no.
Hey, maybe that could be the next movie, the next documentary.
Be a
Finding
good movie.
the
Finding the credit committee.
Finding the credit committee.
Get Michael Moore up here.
Yeah. Well, we don't need Michael Moore. But listen, guys.
No, he's gone mainstream now.
No. We got the goods here in Canada to do it. We got the goods here in Canada.
Disagree with you on that.
Why? Are you aware of all the brilliant documentarians here? What do you mean?
Oh, yes, but where do they end up? There isn't the audience here.
Yeah, fair enough. Don't get me started on that particular topic because we're going to get off track. I have a last question for you guys. This has been a lot of fun to talk to you. By the way, you're watching Groundbreakers, and we're speaking to the most innovative minds in Canadian business. I have Jack Berkowitz, jewelry icon, Harry Stinson, real estate icon, and we've been talking about the inner facets of entrepreneurship, bringing you inside the minds of the greatest entrepreneurs this country has ever seen and will see. And we're going to continue this series, of course. This is episode number 1, and I'm very pleased to have these guys on episode number 1, which will be a wonderful series of amazing, behind the scenes information. But my last question to you guys is, and I'm going to start with Harry this time because I feel like Harry's always got the time to wait, and that's just, that's
Even though he doesn't need it.
And I'm going to give Jack the time to wait on this one, and I know so because give you a few minutes, and you're going to concoct a new hotel idea, and I don't want to do that. That's what a visionary.
Get to the question.
Okay, all right. This is called segue humor.
Okay.
You've obviously never heard of it. Now listen, Harry, if you could go back and talk to Harry Stinson, knowing what you do now, I don't know how old are you?
61.
61. You don't look a day older than 60. Honest to God. Honest to God,
It's
you
the
don't.
pills at the
Honest to God, you
shoppers.
don't.
70 flights. Yeah.
If you could go back at 60 years old, if you could go back and talk to Harry Stinson, that wet behind the ears 29-year-old, what would your advice be?
17 when I started.
Okay. Hey, what's a few years between friends? Now it's a Jewish show because we're arguing about absolutely nothing. No, we're not.
The ratings will soar.
The ratings will soar. Let's keep arguing. I'm sure we can. Last night we did for a few hours, but all kidding aside, Harry, I mean, you have the opportunity to go back in time, to travel back in time. What do you say? What is your advice to a 17-year-old Harry Stinson when you say, "Hey, fella, this is what you need to know to succeed in the world of entrepreneurship"?
I would have spent a little more time on the financing side of it. I just assumed that my great idea would somehow attract support.
Right.
And so I got consumed with executing the idea a little earlier than perhaps I should have. And more so with the development side. I spent a decade in restaurants, which is exhausting. And as much as I love restaurants, I should have got into real estate right away because I've always loved the real estate part. But I thought it's too big for me.
Right.
But I think I probably would have done a little bit of apprenticeship at a major developer.
So your advice would be?
Really get to know the industry a little bit better and build your relationships. I just jumped right in and thought my idea was enough.
Okay, so industry knowledge, R&D, essentially.
Yeah, although ironically, perhaps if I'd got into the industry, maybe I would have drank the Kool-Aid and thought, well, you know, they're right, these people are older and wiser than I. You can get sucked sideways. There's a lot, I think back to the movie Big.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that? Where, you know, the little kid becomes an adult, and as he changes from being a little kid in his mind to becoming an adult, he becomes progressively more useless to the company that hired him because he's supposedly a free thinker.
Right.
Because he has to then toe the line.
So ironically, then this knowingness, this wisdom, this worldliness could basically obliterate the charm of.
I'm not sure that I would go back that far. There are times within the One King battle, which was probably the most devastating setback.
Okay, what would you tell yourself then?
I would have fought harder to keep it out of the hands of the lawyers.
Okay, Jack, what would you go back in time, when did you start your entrepreneurial career? Like, what was your age?
At birth, I think I negotiated with a mole, but
we have photos to prove it.
Yeah,
which small, unfortunately we can't show now.
Very small photos, but I'm internally conflicted. Your question is a great question, and I've never.
Thank you very much. The first time you've complimented me in the 20 years I've known you.
That's because it was the first time that compliments were due.
Was due, yeah.
But I have two issues. One is the issue of passion versus practicality or pragmatism or money or entrepreneurship, and that is, do you go with your passion? My passion is jewelry manufacturing.
Right.
And I would tell any young person, go with your passion.
Right.
I will tell you, however, that has its limitations. Meaning, if you want to make the really big bucks, there's only two products in the world to sell. One is real estate, the other one is money. So today, were I reborn, were I 17 years old, I would ask myself, do I want to do something I truly love?
Okay.
Or would I go into fields that I know I have no limits, and that's real estate and selling of money? Mortgages, financings, any form of putting out money. I do believe those are the only two industries in the world, and they will be there forever. People always need a place to live. People always need money to pay the rent. The second issue I have is far more troubling for me, and that is the issue of ethics and morals. I've run my life the way I think everybody should in business, and that is you always do the right thing. You make a bad deal, you don't get out of it. You honor the deal. You shake hands, you live with that, no matter how stupid it turns out that decision was. The people I've met on the other side of the table, for the most part, and there's no limitation. Those are the Jewish people, the Indians, the Chinese, the Israelis, the Middle Easterners.
We want to make sure we offend everybody here. We don't want to leave anybody out.
It seems okay to not honor your deal. So I'm at a disadvantage, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm telling you I'm stupid. But when you are a person who will always honor your deal for better or worse, and the other side does not, you have a tremendous disability or disadvantage. If I were to lead my life again, I would wrestle with this issue. Do I want to be honest about my taxes? Do I want to be honest with the police? Do I want to be honest with the CRA and with all regulatory bodies out there? I always have been. And I'm proud of that, and I sleep well at night. But if you think I have less problems with the CRA than some crook, if you think I have less problems with the police than some crook, if you think I have less problems with any regulatory bodies than some criminal, I do not. So the system does not reward the guy who shakes hands and lives by that. Having said all that, what do I do about it? I am who I am. But I would certainly tell my children, you know, there's gray. Take advantage of the gray.
So getting back to the question, your advice essentially would be?
Be careful about your decisions because they will haunt you forever. So sleeping well at night is not the end all and be all necessarily. I'm not saying to go that route. I'm saying consider it seriously. Consider it seriously. Being honest may make you sleep well, and they have a great suite for your corner suite in the world to come. But it seems that other people think they have suites too, and they're not living by the same rules. So how do you fix that? I don't have an answer to that, but it's a problem.
I'm not entirely agreeing with that, but I would fundamentally agree with the point that if you assume that life is fair and justice will prevail and being a good person is enough,
so what don't you agree with? What part of what I said do you
Well, I
disagree
think that the sense of there's gray area, yes, there are gray areas. I wouldn't say that that would mean compromise what you're going to do, but don't assume that somehow doing the right thing is enough. Just
You
think, and
agree
to
with
become slightly Oliver Stone-ish, assume that that you're going to get screwed no matter what you do.
So you do agree with me?
Okay. Just to destroy his hope that we're all going to fight. And
Well, you know, if we've got good opinions, we're not going to, you know, we'll give you our true opinions, and if we agree, that's a great thing. So you're on your own.
Yep.
I don't mind that
We
at all.
don't need him. We're going to take this show over here, Jack.
I don't mind that at all. I know you guys, you know, are definitely, you know, do like to take, you know, that's
with
tag
you,
teamed
with you.
him.
And I
We tag teamed him.
and I really love the fact that you know they divulge on air, you know, what we spoke about off air. It's that's always a good tactic for a guest. Anyways, I definitely appreciate that.
This is going to get cut.
You get what you pay for, my friend.
You get what you pay for. That's the other lesson, right? You're going to get screwed, and you get what you pay for.
Yep.
Okay, now that's motivational speaking
How much
from
you do
Harry
get?
Stinson. Motivational Speaking 101. Okay, guys, all joking aside, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit and kibitz and talk about the inner facets of entrepreneurship. Lots of amazing insights for the young entrepreneurs who I know are, you know, very eager to tap into your infinite wisdom. So it's been a pleasure. Jack Berkovitz, awesome to see you again.
Thank you
I always
very
love
much.
to
Thank you.
talk to you. Harry Stinson,
Thank you.
thanks for showing up. And
Thank you.
we're going to wrap it up, the first episode of Groundbreakers inside the minds of Canada's greatest entrepreneurs. Thanks for being here. See you next time, same channel. Thanks for being here. We're out of here.